Are you sad that we never received the Final Fantasy epic directed by Tetsuya Nomura known as Final Fantasy Versus XIII that ended up evolving into Final Fantasy XV? Well, don't worry, Reynatis has you covered. What's going on, fellas? Welcome back to another one. Today's one, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Reynatis. It recently received another trailer. It's more so of an extended trailer from the one that we got in the Nintendo Direct. It gives us more of a look at this game's world and its characters, as well as, most importantly, the gameplay. But I just, for a quick sec, have to talk about the very obvious, very apparent Versus XIII inspiration. We've already talked about the whole, Yozora, Verum Rex, Kingdom Hearts thing. Well, let's just for a second here, more so talk about Versus XIII. As much as there is, that obvious Kingdom Hearts kind of vibe going on, it's definitely more so Versus here. I think Takumi Isobe, the director of Reynatis, pretty much thought to himself, if Square Enix are basically just never going to give us Versus XIII, f it, I'm gonna make it myself. And I think that is kind of what's going on here with Reynatis. Just looking at this extended trailer, there is quite literally a cutscene in this trailer that is basically a one-to-one choreography of something that Noctis does during an old Versus XIII trailer, where Noctis sort of slashes the engine blade in front of him, in front of the camera, and then obviously the royal arm weapons behind him kind of all fly up. A very, very iconic Versus XIII scene from that trailer. The same thing is literally in here. Takumi Isobe knows what he's doing. And I think it was pretty important that he did the interview a few days back, explaining a little bit more about this game, giving us that context of, yes, I am inspired by the likes of both Kingdom Hearts, but more importantly, Final Fantasy, because it is so obvious, and it's sort of smart from that sense because it's got a lot of people in both the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts community talking about it. The only reason why I guess I'm talking about it is, for one, it is an action RPG, love them, but two, the very obvious inspiration draws here from both of those games. Even when you look at the parallels between the protagonists in Reynatis to that of Stella and Noctis from Versus XIII, that epic, face-off thing in the streets that we see in an old Versus XIII trailer between, Noctis and Stella using their powers. Then looking at, how in Reynatis here, we've got Sari and Myron kind of going at it as they're on opposite sides of the fence. Again, very similar to, Noctis being the king of Lucis, and then Stella's ties to that of Tenebrae. This is just basically Versus XIII. Even the little captioning that is kind of flowing at the beginning of the trailer, this is very much a Final Fantasy, Nomura, Kingdom Hearts type of thing to do when it comes to the trailers and how they flow with the title text. By the way, just real quick, you'll notice these are in English. That's a pretty good sign that hopefully there is going to be some kind of localization. As of right now, it's only slated for Japan, but hopefully this indicates that maybe they are working on sending this game outside of Japan. And of course the music too. It is being composed by Yoko Shimomura, who also back in the day did the music for Versus XIII, but it's just so very similar. It seems as if Takumi Isobe kind of asked Yoko Shimomura, you know, back in that day, that track that you did for the Versus XIII trailers, you mind doing that again? Just put a little bit of extra seasoning on it, change a few notes, add a bit of this and that here, and we're good. That is our trailer music.
Wahoo.
I don't believe that this is going to be bootleg Versus XIII or anything like that. It's just there are some very real, unapologetic inspiration strings being drawn here. And I think really, if anything, that is a good thing. As long as you're not blatantly ripping off certain aspects. Although that cutscene comparison that I made before is kind of getting a little bit close, still, let it pass. I think this is looking pretty good. Let's talk about the game though, because we got to see some more gameplay. I'm still a little bit undecided on whether or not the actual combat system of this game looks like it will be a fun time. I really can't gauge at all if the combat system seems like it's fluid. It's not going to be like jank. And it's also hard to gauge considering where this game's coming from, being that of Furyu and Natsumi Atare. Both of these guys, both the publisher and the developer, are not really known for really anything. And the games that they have put out in the past haven't really performed all too well. They're generally known as low-budget titles, and there's sort of an aspect of Rain Aris to me that seems low-budgety. Like, again, it's cool that they've got some pretty big names behind here, like Nojima, as well as Yoko Shimomura. That's great, but some cutscenes look really good, and then some just don't. Like, the actual in-game, I guess, in-engine type cutscenes just don't. Like, there's some aspect of this game that just kind of comes across as, okay, this is clearly a low-budget title, and it makes sense again for Furyu. Some of the animations and stuff also seem just a little bit strange. I think the combat animations and all that seem fine, but those, like, in-game cutscenes just look a bit strange to me. I don't know, I feel like it's still a little bit too early to judge. And also, because this trailer shows to us, like, more of the environment and gameplay, it is apparent that this game looks like a PS3 title. That's not a bad thing, mind you. Hey, I'm all for, like, the old school takes. It just really comes down to, you know, like, if the gameplay is actually going to be entertaining or not. There was a bit of an explanation on the suppression and release system. So basically, you can switch between both of these systems in real time while you're in combat. Pretty much, in order to engage in combat and attack the enemy, you go into release mode. However, you have no defensive capabilities. When you go into suppression mode while in combat, time essentially slows down, and in this mode, you're able to dodge. You'll also be using the suppression system as well while you're rolling around the streets of Shibuya to stay unnoticed by, of course, the civilians. If you are noticed by the civilians, they'll pretty much call the authorities and you will be swarmed by them. Another thing that's been explained as well is while you're in the suppression mode, you actually do have to talk to and engage with some of the civilians in order to get hints towards your objective. So you'll also be conversing with the civilians of Shibuya as well. We also got to see those otherworldly areas that we have been talking about. So the game's not just going to entirely take place within Shibuya. There will be these portals that you'll be able to step into that will send you into different worlds or into different realms. It also shows us other characters aside from both Marin and Sare being playable. So this to me tells me that for the sub-characters that will join up with you, and these are unique for whether you're playing as Sare or, of course, Marin, looking at the heads-up display, initially I was thinking, okay, because we've got button prompts there on the sub-characters' heads, there will be something we can do in order to engage with them within combat, right? And I was saying initially, this probably doesn't mean that they're playable, but I guess they are playable. So the sub-characters you'll also be able to play as well, and no doubt they'll also have their own unique fighting styles. It looks like we'll probably be able to switch between the characters whilst we're engaging in combat. So that's kind of neat. In the last video, we were also talking about how Takumi Isobe wants a very realistic and accurate representation of Shibuya, even down to the point of having actual real stores that appear in real-life Tokyo Shibuya appear in Reynatis' rendition of the city. We've already gone over a few of the different stores and brands that literally are in Shibuya that appear in the trailer, but recently we saw in this trailer that Adidas is literally in the game. So this essentially means that Furyu seeked out Adidas, asked them, hey, can we show your brand in our fantasy video game? And they were like, yeah, go hard, go ahead, why not? Obviously, there was probably some like money exchanged, etc., etc. I just find this really surprising though, considering that, as I was mentioning, this game does kind of seem low budget. Furyu are not a well-known publisher developer in the slightest, but they have landed an Adidas deal. In before people start commenting the correct way to pronounce Adidas. It's Adidas, not Adidas. And I forgot to mention this in my previous videos, but Shoka from Neo Tsuei is in this game. Like, that's just straight up Shoka from Tsuei. So there's, you know, a lot of Square Enix inspiration going on here. But again, I like it. However, I am remaining skeptical about this game. I think it does look cool. I like the premise. I honestly do like the fact that the game is heavily taking notes from both Kingdom Hearts and especially Final Fantasy Versus XIII. I like all of that. It's just, because of the developer, because of the footage that we've seen so far, some of it looks a little bit, okay, janky, lanky, schlanky, a little bit guh. However, this is a game I am most certainly going to be keeping a close eye on. Not sure really what to think of it just yet, other than kind of looks cool. However, guys, hopefully that has given you a little bit more context towards Reynatis. Once again, I will be keeping you guys updated when news comes out towards this, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, thank you so much to my wonderful patrons. You guys are epic. Thank you so much for the support. Be sure to check out my other social media platforms. With that being said, I'm Cynical. Hopefully having a good one, and we'll talk real soon.